Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this EHB Talk webinar on how we can scale up district heating and cooling for a secure, decarbonized, and competitive Europe. My name is Luca Neumann. I'm Senior Policy Advisor at Euroheat and Power. And with me on this sterling panel are Margot Pinault, Energy Efficiency Policy Team Leader at DG Ener at the European Commission, Gaia Balzarini, Global Industry Affairs Director at Climate Solutions Danfoss, which is an industry leader in energy efficiency technologies, and Raphael Schenkel, European Affairs Advisor at AGFW, the German District Heating Association. Why are we gathered here today? That's the big question, although most of you know it. Next year, it will be exactly 10 years since the last heating and cooling strategy of the European Commission has been published, and it will be next year that the European Commission is going to unveil its new strategy. In 10 years, a lot has changed. Our energy system, the needs of our energy system, our objectives, and of course, the geopolitical context. And today, we want to address the role of district heating and cooling in the future heating and cooling system, and its contribution to the EU's objective of decarbonization, competitiveness, affordability, and security challenges. So to give you an outline on how it's going to be today, we'll first hear from Margot about the Commission's plan for the upcoming strategy, the objectives, and why it is important. I will then shortly present Euroheat and Power's policy asks for the strategy that we have freshly published just about 3 weeks ago. And we'll continue with hands-on industry presentations from first Gaia, who will be presenting Danfoss' new heat recovery tool and how we can make the best use of waste heat recovery in Europe, and Raphael, who will give us the German perspective on heating and cooling plants and how we can reach the full potential of this tool. The second half of this hour will be dedicated to an open exchange between all of us. And finally, before we really dive into the presentations, let me remind you that you have the possibility to ask questions via the Q&A chat box. I will try to address 1 or 2 questions at the end of the webinar. So without taking any more time, I'll hand over to Margot. You have the floor for 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca, and good afternoon to everyone. I will put my slides on. So, yes, I have the pleasure to present you this upcoming heating and cooling strategy, which is the 2nd edition, as rightly introduced by Luca. The first heating and cooling strategy by the European Commission was adopted in 2016. Before going into the strategy, I will present the context and then the regulatory framework that we already have in place in order to know what is our current starting point. So many things have changed, as rightly said, in the energy landscape, but I would say in the heating and cooling landscape, not that much has changed, and that's why we need to accelerate, and actually we need this action. Heating and cooling represents half of the EU energy use, and what is striking is that waste heat corresponds to almost 30% of the total EU energy use. So much of this generated heat is being wasted from various processes, industry, services, infrastructures. And this would correspond nearly to the half of the all EU fossil fuel consumption. So we could have replaced half of our fossil fuel energies with waste heat if recovered. So that's a great potential for energy efficiency gains indeed. Renewables represent now in 2023, actually I have the data, 26% in total heating and cooling supply. Though important to highlight that 80% of this 26% is coming actually from combustion of biomass. while 17% is delivered by heat pumps. Was in 2023. So clearly here we would like to see a change and massive shift towards out of combustion and towards clean energy, clean heat sources driven by heat pumps, driven by electricity if needed or directly captured. So that's the change that we would like to see, not only phase out of fossil fuels, but also limiting the share of combustion. And this will provide us greater energy efficiency in the system, in the heating and cooling supply and consumption, and should also better tap into the potential of locally available clean heat sources and result in more affordable and resilient and secure energy system in this transition. So this slide shows you how diverse are we in the EU between different EU member states. The share of renewable sources in heating and cooling are quite different, and this is not reflecting really the potentials, but rather the historical, let's say, traditions and setups. So the potentials for increasing renewable sources in heating and cooling are in many member states still untapped. And as said, we have already quite comprehensive regulatory framework, which I would like to present you shortly. Starting from the planning requirements through infrastructure development and deployment, through targets as regards increasing renewables and energy efficiency. So starting with Energy Efficiency Directive, there are planning requirements for the national level, and what is new is also local level planning that will need to be delivered by all municipalities over 45,000 inhabitants. As of now, as of entry into a transposition deadline of the EED. And that's a very, very important element because it's a real empowerment of the local level to drive the energy transition through this heating and cooling planning that will be integrated with other energy related planning and beyond, because we would like this to be as integrated as possible, looking from wider perspective, what is the building stock, what are the available potentials, what are the available infrastructure and technologies, so to make the best use, because this transition happens at the local level. Then in Article 26 of the EED, we have a scenario for decarbonization of district heating and cooling that is driven by the definition of efficient district heating and cooling that increases progressively the shares of renewable heat and waste heat, while decreasing the share of combustion in this heating and cooling supply of district heating and cooling. And to comply with it, all the systems above 5 megawatts will need to plan this conversion towards compliance with the definition. In addition, this article includes measures related to waste heat potential assessment. This will be done through the CBA's cost-benefit analysis that are mandatory for industries, service facilities, including data centers and power plants, all of this above certain capacity levels. And this awareness needs to be increased among economic operators. What is the waste heat potential? And then also member states need to link it to the permitting criteria to see how to best use this potential. Finally, I'm going towards renewable energy directive, which has strong provisions on increasing the share of renewable energy in heating and cooling. First of all, a binding national target of 0.8% currently and 1.1% as of 2026 of annual increase of share of renewables in heating and cooling supply. And there is an option also to count waste heat or renewable electricity if driven by the heat pump, but with a cap of 0.4% for each. Next, there is another target in the RED directive that is non-binding, but that is applying specifically for district heating and cooling sector of 2.2% per year of increase of renewables in the supply of heating and cooling. But there are many other provisions which are of interest of our discussion today. For example, the cooperation framework between district heating and cooling operators and electricity DSOs. This is something very important because we would like to see better system integration and better interactions, more, let's say, regular interactions between these two sectors, especially at local level, because there are joint benefits to be developed. There are services that district heating and cooling system can serve and provide to the local electricity grid in terms of flexibility and thermal storage. And for this, the regulatory requirements exist already and needs to be effectively implemented on the ground, and this will be also in our focus. So, as you probably know, the heating and cooling strategy was officially announced in the Action Plan for Affordable Energy on the 26th of February this year. And it will be developed together with Electrification Action Plan. That's how it was framed in the Action Plan for Affordable Energy. And rightly so, because these are two sides of the same coin. We are aiming to phase out fossil fuels across the whole economy and in heating and cooling in specifically. And here we would like these fossil fuels to be replaced by available clean energy sources that can be driven mainly by electricity as the main energy carrier for decarbonization. So we are aiming at the same. However, heating and cooling strategy needs to complement the Electrification Action Plan, because we would like to achieve as efficient as possible electrification and use to the maximum extent the potential of clean heat sources, whether they are directly available from the nature or they are available from different human activities. They need to be grasped and used before conversion or before generation of heat. So whatever is available needs to be used and transferred. And the good technology for doing that is a heat pump, because heat pump is transferring these available sources of thermal energy to heating and cooling. We would like to, of course, achieve, as said, higher efficiency gains, and this through better system integration, recovery of waste heat, the flexibility that, on the other hand, the heating system can provide to electricity grid. We would like to accelerate the deployment of clean heat technologies that will complement electrification, that will help this electrification. So as said, thermal storage, thermal-based flexibility, district heating and cooling systems as a big flexibility potential and thermal storage potential. And of course, we also need to effectively implement all this regulatory framework that I just showed in the nutshell, and it's much broader because I didn't speak about EPBD and eco-design and many other provisions that are of relevance for heating and cooling. So it's really complete, and now we need to make a good use of it and make it effectively implemented on the ground and create the right synergies. So the heating and cooling strategy will focus on planning, networks, efficiency gains, clean heat technologies and resources, affordability, and competitiveness. We will look at heat as an energy carrier on its own right, with proper planning rules and practice, and also its own infrastructure, its development, financing, with stress on the interactions between the systems of electricity and heat, and better use of waste heat, so that on this continent where we have scarce energy and costly energy, we do not waste energy anymore, and we try to really optimize all the energy flows that we have available. We'll be looking, of course, at the clean heat technologies deployment. What are the market conditions to speed up this deployment? Starting from heat pumps, but also direct renewable energy direct renewable heat from technologies that can grasp the heat from the nature, like solar thermal or geothermal. But we'll look also at the sustainability of biomass, because indeed we would like that this is fully in line with circularity principles, and that we have a framework that gives us comprehensive approach to decarbonization in a wider context, not only heating and cooling. And all of these ingredients should give us the possibility to achieve more affordable heating and cooling on the demand side, more competitive industrial heat for industry, and affordable for households. That's our aim. So on the timeline, we are currently consulting stakeholders. So you are all very warmly invited to take an active part in the call for evidence that closes in 3 days, on the 9th of October, and in the open public consultation that lasts a little bit longer until 20th of November. We are planning a stakeholder event on the 7th of November, which will be hybrid, but will be in presence in Sainte-Borchette, so the Commission Conference Center. We didn't yet send, let's say, the registration link, but it will come soon. And as regards the strategy, it is planned for the adoption end of first quarter of 2026, so end of March, I would say. So that's everything that I can present you at this stage, and happy for the further discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you for giving us this comprehensive overview of the upcoming heating and cooling strategy in the context. Well, with that, I will focus on what are the demands of the DHC sector towards this heating and cooling strategy. I'm not going to repeat the numbers. We have seen it with Margot's presentation. Heating and cooling is one of the most overlooked sectors when it comes to the decarbonization of our energy system. And if we really want to achieve our decarbonization targets by 2050, we have to transition to clean heating and cooling. And this is not just a matter of cleanly warming our homes or cooling our industries. And we have seen it in the past. It's also a security and geopolitical imperative. In fact, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has laid bare our dependence on fossil fuel imports. And actually, still today, both citizens and industries are still highly impacted by fossil fuel-related price volatility. And so we need to shield citizens from high energy heating prices and boost competitiveness. And for that, we need to accelerate the phase out of fossil fuels in heating and cooling. Luckily, DHC can help. And because DHC is a technology that has the advantage of being able to tap into any energy source. It can use renewables, be it from geothermal, solar thermal, or other sources, and also tap into waste heat, and we'll see how concretely later on. Another advantage of DHC is that it is locally developed and integrated. With a fully European value chain, DHC is creating economic and job opportunities in all over Europe, and this fully in line with the objectives of a just transition. So just to sum up the slide, this is how DHC can help with affordability, energy security, competitiveness, and of course, our decarbonization goals. But how can we get there? Well, a study by the University of Aalborg suggests that by 2050, in a fully decarbonized heating and cooling system, we would have to have 55% of district heating and cooling. So what we need for that is, first of all, we need to lower the energy costs for affordable, clean heating solutions. And one of the ways, because the measures that are mentioned here on the slide are only a cutout of our, let's say, catalog of measures. One of the ways is to increase system flexibility, and Margot mentioned it, was a more integrated approach to energy systems, which think of heating and electricity infrastructures together. And there, I think it's very positive to see that you are developing the heating and cooling strategy in parallel to the the electrification action plan. We also need to make it easier to access clean heat solutions. I think many people have made this personal experience that when the gas boiler breaks down, it's really not easy and affordable to switch to a clean heat solution. And one way to address this is to help municipalities to fully develop and implement heating and cooling plans. And we'll later see how this is, for instance, happening in Germany. Because heating and cooling plants, they lay out in which community, which clean heat solution is the best choice. We also need to remove barriers to DHC. This has been discussed in many discussions around energy policy. We really need to accelerate permitting procedures, but not, however, at the cost of regulatory instability. We need to simplify implementation of existing legislation and not weaken it, and that's the key. And of course, there's always money involved. We need to de-risk clean heat projects, for example, that are linked to geothermal or also waste heat recovery, where the start is sometimes a little bit too difficult because there are certain risks involved, and that we need to support. And last but not least, and this is often a hidden topic in this whole heating and cooling transition, is that we need a real cooling strategy. Temperatures are increasing every year. It's getting hotter, and the cooling needs will grow. And with that, the impact on the energy infrastructure of cooling also grows. So we need to really address that in the upcoming heating and cooling strategy. I'm not going to dive any deeper, but I invite you to already consult after the call, of course, our full position paper on the website. And with that, we're moving over to a hands-on presentation on how we can tap into waste heat recovery. And I hand you over the floor, Gaia.
Thank you. I hope that you can make the transition for me, as I'm not able.
I will do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So my presentation is about how to manage and how to provide the transparency on the opportunity around waste heat. And this has the ambition to accelerate the transition over a decarbonized heating and cooling strategy. If you can go to my first slide. Thank you. Okay, then we start from the elephant in the room, I would say. That's the figure you see here, 2,860 terawatt hour per year is the amount of waste heat that Europe is basically rejecting. How is that rejected? Normally, waste heat is originated in an industrial, but also in a hospital or in a data center by a cooling process that is rejecting the energy that is needed in order to cool down that specific process. And to give you a size of this value, basically these 2,860 terawatt hour, they correspond to the European total energy demand for heating and hot water production in the residential and service sector buildings. This is really a huge opportunity that we are missing. On the left side of this slide, I have reported the typical need of energy in several different capitals. And basically, you can see that the top three rejectors of waste heat, they could basically cover that need just by having three players delivering waste heat recovery to the network. If you can go to the next slide, please. But why is that? Why is it that basically on a global level, 72% of the energy is currently lost or rejected? That's first of all because we are missing familiarity and awareness around the opportunity of waste heat recovery, around the business case that goes around the business waste heat recovery, but also we are not really familiar with the legal framework that is needed to be assisted in that kind of investment. And then we all know we are still dealing with very high electricity prices. And why is electricity involved? That's because in most of cases heat pumps are needed to basically improve the quality or the temperature of the waste heat recovery system at the level that is needed to the user or the district heating network. And then the third element that we need to take into account is that still designers and installers, they lack skills to properly design, install, and commission and maintain the system. And this is basically leading to operational inefficiencies that are affecting a little bit the credibility of this technology, which at the end is something that from a technological perspective is using consolidated components. So it's a pity. Next slide, please. For this reason, at Danfoss last year, we have invested resources to develop a tool which is called the Heat Recovery Tool. That's a free tool. You can get access from our website. I have added a QR code that you find on this slide here. And this recovery tool is basically providing all of this missing information that are normally needed for a potential investor or stakeholder to decide whether it makes sense or not to invest in a waste heat recovery system. And basically what we do, I have here on the right side of the slide an example of a traditional system where basically there's a consumer of heat, maybe for heating a building, for example, that is previously using heat from a traditional boiler, that instead we look at reusing the excess heat. Let's take the example of a hospital, from the cooling system of the hospital, that through a heat pump can be recovered and then directed immediately into the building. But as most of the time the need of the building will be more than covered, then the remaining part can be directed into a district heating network that at the end enables the full efficiency of the recovery system, and this makes the business case positive. The tool, what this tool does, basically it helps understanding each specific case. And what you need to do is you need to basically provide the tool the temperatures of the heat sink, the conditions, the number of hours where the waste heat is available, and some more information. But at the end, it is providing a suggestion for a good layout to fully utilize that energy, and it also provides payback, capex investment, opex investments. So all of those information which are very much difficult to calculate from most investors, and we really hope that having such a tool will push and promote the use of waste heat much more in the future. Next slide, maybe we can also discuss in the dialogue afterwards, but basically the idea that we have is that in the future we have to lose much less primary energy. And how can we make it happen? We have, I think we have the technology available, but we need to look at the opportunity of the new heating and cooling strategy together with the directives, and see how they can fit together to promote a shift in the use of the energy sources that we have. For example, the mandatory heat mapping for municipalities will provide transparency and will somehow promote the use of waste heat where available. And then having guidelines, good definitions on-site and off-site recovery, for example, and obligations and incentives when the mapping is giving information that there's an opportunity to use waste heat on a specific municipality, for example, and that all viable projects have to be supported when there's a positive business case around it. And then for sure the technological progress is given because investing in high efficiency heat pumps will help improving performance and a return of investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaia, for this hands-on example of how the DHC sector can advance the clean heat transition with waste heat recovery, for example, through free tools such as yours. So to better understand now how we can create the conditions for the deployment of clean heat solutions, I now hand over to Raphael to get us his insights on heating and cooling plants in Germany and what we can learn in Europe from this.
Thank you so much, Luca. Welcome from my side as well. I speak for HEFW, that's the German District Heating Association, the equivalent of Euroheat and Power for the German level. Exactly. I will speak about heating and cooling plants in Germany mainly. So we have a law for heating and cooling plants in Germany, and now just for you to understand how are the state actor levels. So as Margot described, the Energy Efficiency Directive has this obligation for heating and cooling plants in the EED. Then this has to be transposed on the national level, and it has been done so already in the German Heat Planning Act or German Wärmeplanungsgesetz. And in this law, this again then rules for the federal states, because in Germany we have also the 16 federal states, and they are obligated to write now local state climate protection acts. And in these state climate protection acts is again the obligation for the municipalities. So in Germany, it's like these 4 levels. In other European countries, maybe sometimes only 3, but that's how it works. And in the end, the municipalities have to implement and write these plans. What is written in the Heat Planning Act? So the municipalities, they all must create a heat planning or heat plan for the future target of climate neutrality in 2045 in Germany. And there are 2 thresholds. Big municipalities above 100,000 inhabitants must finish their plan until mid-2026. Smaller municipalities until mid-2028. And what must be in the plan? They need to identify how the heat status quo is in the city, what measures to improve They have to outline different areas, like for which heating technologies would be suitable there, and how to implement that. And then at the end, they arrive with such a plan. This is now just for model city. And then they will maybe draw up a plan. Okay, in the middle, in the highly densely populated area is for district heating, the red area. In the blue area, there's maybe industry, and they will have hydrogen at some point or other climate neutral gases. And the yellow areas are for individual solutions, mainly heat pumps. And it also includes obligations for district heating networks and to have a certain share of sustainable heat from renewables and waste heat. And the thresholds here are 30% sustainable heat in the year 2030, 40%, 80% in the year 2040, and 100% climate neutral in the year 2045. So this is then like an indirect implementation of Article 26 of the EED. What is missing? So cold planning is missing in total in Germany so far, but that could be easily included. And as you can see in the lower part, the thresholds are a bit different to the EED Article 26, and also a high efficiency CHP is missing. We would like to have it, of course. But yeah, it's already quite well implemented. How is the status then right now? On the right side, you see a map of Germany, of the different 16 Bundesländer. And green means in this municipality, in this city, it has already been finished heat planning. Orange means it's in progress, and white, not started yet, or we don't know. For major cities, above 100,000 people, it's only a few cities, around 80, they are already 1/3 is finished, and 2/3 are in progress. So they are very well on the way. It looks really good. The medium-sized cities, there are between 100,000 and 10,000 inhabitants. And these are also interesting for the Commission, like the big share. They are like only a few completed, most of them in progress, and a few are unknown, but mostly the smaller ones. So that is okay, but only 2 more years, 2.5 more years to go. And the small municipalities, over half of them, we do not know. The status is unknown. So this will probably take some time. But yeah, so as you can see, it's very well on the way in Germany. Some Bundesländer like Baden-Württemberg on the bottom left already very far. Now I have like a few priorities from our side for heating cooling strategy. I hope Marjo and the Commission are listening. So we do not want changes to the existing regulatory framework. Our members, they want now to invest. They want now to have like the stability of EED and RED and EPBD, and to invest in new heating technologies and so on. And that takes, of course, 5 to 10 years at least. So we need some time to do that. The second big thing is we need cost reduction also for district heating, for also the district heating sources, because we want affordable heat. And one idea would be in the Affordable Energy Action Plan, the Commission recommended member states to reduce the VAT for electricity. And we would like to do, if possible, the Commission also asked that for district heating as a second big pillar of decarbonisation. Of course, the member states must decide that at the end. That would be one idea to reduce the costs. Another idea, reduce costs for renewable electricity for district heating. But also here, electricity taxes and grid charges are reduced for large heat pumps and electrode boilers. We need insurance schemes for specific technologies with state guarantees, especially for geothermal, when you drill and there's a risk that you will not find any available or suitable heat source, or industrial waste heat, because the steel smelter can just decide in 5 years later, okay, I will outsource outside of the European Union, and then you have a problem as the heat provider. The 2 last points, accelerated permitting would be important for all sustainable heat sources as well, not only for electricity, for wind or solar, but also for heating, that the Commission maybe takes a close look. Are the member states also doing that for heat? And the last point is state aid rules. We have available funding in Germany and other countries, but the state aid rules are sometimes a bit complicated, and we would really like if that might be a bit accelerated. And all that would result in more affordable and more sustainable heat for all the citizens. Okay, thank you. And then back to Luca.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Raphael, for decomplexifying the implementation of heating and cooling plants in Germany, which allows us to move over to the panel discussion. And we're a little bit over time, but we should still manage to get 15 minutes of discussion in. A quick reminder, and I see that questions keep popping up in the Q&A chat. That's very great. Keep them coming. And I want to start the discussion with a question to Margot, because you mentioned this connected development of the electrification action plan and the heating and cooling strategy. So this is very positive. And we also know that DHC has a great flexibility potential. How really concretely will these two texts address this, and without having overlaps? And yeah, what's going to be the distinction between the two of those?
Thank you, Luca, for the question, and many thanks for the insightful presentations from the predecessor speakers. It was very interesting. I noted a lot. Well, it will be certainly cross-referencing in many places, so you could call it overlap, but I call it rather, cross-referenced drafting, where we need to work together on the same challenge. But as I used to explain, whatever is really to be addressed within electricity system or through the electricity market will be rather belonging to the electrification action plan. And what concerns really thermal energy as an energy carrier, so planning, infrastructure, market conditions, technology, all the enabling around the technology, installers, skills, etc. This rather belongs to the heating and cooling. But then we will see in practice how it will evolve. As said, as we are drafting this in parallel, it's not a problem to adjust our work as we work. The potential of district heating to contribute to electricity is twofold. First of all, in densely populated areas, it will reduce the peak capacity needs of the local electricity system once we move to electrified heating and cooling. And cooling is already electrified. And this we can already observe in the summertime when we have heat waves, growing cooling demand. But this can also be imagined for heating when it will be electrified, that in the very extreme conditions, there will be peak demands, right? So in this densely populated areas, district heating is perfect solution because it is decreasing this peak capacity at the extreme weather conditions. So it's very important because we don't need to over-dimension the system and over-invest in the capacities, whether they are generation or transmission and distribution. They do not need to be over-dimensioned. And on the other hand, as it was already mentioned, district heating systems represent a great flexibility potential once partially electrified. It will not be probably fully electrified because we would like to use thermal energy available from various sources and combine through district heating, but part of the supply will be electrified using heat pumps or other power-to-heat technologies. Could be also electric boilers just for the peaking periods to shave the peaks from the electricity grid when there is oversupply of renewable electricity, and heat pumps for more the baseload production. And all of this can be very well combined with intelligence, with digital tools, but all of this needs to be properly planned. So we start from this planning step where both district heating operators and DSOs on electricity system need to sit together and really look how the demand and supply will evolve in a given territory and how to best adjust both systems.
Okay. Thank you. I think you made a great link to my next question about planning, because I want to get back to you, Raphael. You showed us how heating and cooling plans are progressing in Germany, and I think that's really good to see. To take a little bit a look at the national context, you also had a relatively recent government change. We're not getting into politics, of course, here, but what is crucial in your eyes to avoid that this progress is being slowed down or that the investments that are taking place are stalling?
Thank you for the question. So a bit like I said before, regulatory stability is very important, that both customers but also the utilities don't get the feeling that the political course is shifting every 4 years completely. So customers must know district heating will remain, together with heat pumps, an available and affordable solution for the next 30 years. So they can connect now and it will stay available and stay relevant for them. And this would help a lot, because with more customers, it's of course easier to finance and utilize projects in the city. On the other hand, financing is of course always a topic. Costs have been increasing, and district heating is a very investment heavy cost technology. So also the investment aspect, for example, through either state aid or also like through new financing options on the individual level would be important. So yeah, the heating plants are there, but or they're currently developed, as you've seen on the map. But how to finance them and if they will remain important long term, these are maybe the two important things here.
Very good, thank you. And now off to you, Gaia, from your, let's say, business, very practical perspective. The European Commission plans to unlock 11% of heat demand through waste heat recovery. And we see that there are tools out there to make this happen. But I think you highlighted one particular challenge, which is lack of awareness. And this is something a little bit less tangible. So how can we, and maybe also from your practical experience, how can we raise awareness of waste heat recovery and then, of course, utilize it?
Thank you for the question. On the awareness part, I think heat mapping are giving us a very good opportunity, because it should not only be an exercise doing the mapping, but these maps should be given public visibility to push transition over municipalities and to have all stakeholders, public and private, involved into that transition. So finding a way to give them visibility is the trigger here. And then afterwards integrate that into the futuristic urban planning for our cities. From a legal perspective, for sure, having some kind of standardized legal framework that can be used across Europe will for sure help credibility and trust over the different stakeholders that should be involved. For example, through the negotiation, through the replicability of a project, and this will have a practical impact on a business perspective, but also from a grid improvement perspective, because utilities as well should be involved into the process and engaged into the de-risking process. Finally, support schemes to make the finance and the business case possible, and eventually to be clearly communicated that in most of cases the business case will be a positive business case with a very short payback time. So that's the exercise beside the capacity building and skills and those other arguments.
Thank you very much for that. And I will now start taking questions from the audience, because I see that there are quite many coming in and with really interesting perspectives. And I would like to ask you, Margot, because we haven't really fully touched on this subject of financing, but we have mentioned it a little bit, the need for investments if we want to get to 55% of DHC by 2050. it's clear that then there is a need for investment. And there was a question about the CSAF, so the new framework for loans under the Clean Industrial Deal. Maybe it's not of your remit, but the question is, can this framework also be used by member states for energy projects in the heating and cooling sector, if it is partly used to supply manufacturing companies? So how can we mobilize these tools for heating and cooling?
This tool is specifically dedicated to decarbonize industrial process heat. To my best knowledge, but I would need to check, it's really within the industry. So projects also including waste heat recovery within a given industry in the scope of this framework. I'm not certain, but probably not the district heating. District heating is part of a broader framework on environment and climate. And I mean, at least I noted very well the recommendations, and we will need to look into the state aid framework separately for this sector, for heating and cooling sector. And this can be fully in the scope of the heating and cooling strategy. So CSAF was really designed to decarbonize industries, and to my understanding, the scope is limited to the industrial plants.
Thank you for this clarification. There's also a question on the actual implementation of legislation, and I think I'm not sure to whom to address it, because it says when can we expect that regulation concretely impacts the business community? I think if I asked you, Gaia, you would say, yeah, it has already an impact. It's already moving forward, right? I mean, you would agree with me on that?
Yes, for sure. What we need is long-term visibility, stability, clarity, and common legal framework to act.
Yes.
That is for sure.
And to you, Margot, I guess there's currently a lot of, because it's connected to this question, a lot of evaluations going on about the existing legislation. How will this influence the heating and cooling strategy? What is maybe the current status, and will there be maybe a report on this? What can we expect?
Yes, there must be a report. This is our legal obligation, but the report will be a little bit delayed. And this is due to the fact that we need to align the timeline. So indeed, we are starting the evaluation of the heating and cooling policies within this framework of Article 35(2), I think, right? And of the EED. But the report will be delivered together with the heating and cooling strategy, and yeah, the aim is that it fits the recommendations into it. If I may come back, because I was not fully right in answering the question about CSAF, because it has two angles. One is decarbonization of heat, and the other is acceleration of renewable energy. And within this acceleration of renewable energy, this is across the board. And for example, storage projects are to be accelerated as well. And I remember there that specifically thermal storage is spelled out. So I understand that, for example, projects in thermal storage in district heating could be supported under this framework, but I would need to check once again. But now I recall that indeed there are two angles. There is renewable energy acceleration, and also acceleration of decarbonization of industry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And maybe one final question, because I've introduced the topic as being super relevant to energy security. Can you, Margot, maybe explain a little bit how there is going to be the link to energy security of this upcoming heating and cooling strategy?
Yes, indeed. And this is another information I forgot to mention, that the Commission is preparing the energy security package, and the heating and cooling strategy together with an electrification action plan will be part of this package. So we'll look specifically at the elements strengthening resilience of our energy system, security, and I would say the overall narrative on the transition of heating and cooling is very well aligned with these objectives of better resilience of our energy system, independence from fossil fuel imports, resilience to more difficult climatic conditions, for example, in terms of cooling. So these will be certainly the problems that we will look at specifically.
All right, perfect. So I will, with this, start to close the Q&A round. And as I hadn't had the opportunity to ask questions to Raphael, I would like to ask you in one sentence what makes you optimistic about the heating and cooling transition, and just mention one point that you would like to see in the heating and cooling strategy. I give you this joker.
Thank you. Yeah, what makes me optimistic is, of course, the heating and cooling plans, because as we've seen in Germany, they bring quite a lot of attention and awareness to every municipality is thinking right now about heating, about district heating. This brings a lot of push towards district heating in Germany. That is a very positive aspect. And in the heating and cooling plan, of course, the topic of heating costs, how to reduce heating costs, and that in result reduce prices. They would be very important. Some of the suggestions I mentioned earlier, they would be my greatest wish. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to you, Gaia. What makes you optimistic about the heating and cooling transition?
In relation to waste heat and the opportunity of having new district heating networks, I would say it's no more a matter of feasibility studies. It's a matter of deployment and action, and that is where we need to focus, right? So if we can start acting, then we'll see the transition happening.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And same to you, Margot. What makes you optimistic?
Well, I think that we have powerful tools. We have a strong regulatory framework. We would like to make it more effectively implementable now. And I'm optimistic because it's half of the success. As it was said, 50% of our energy use is heating and cooling. So if we achieve this transition, we are very far already in the overall transition towards decarbonization. So it's already big step, and we are empowered. I mean, we are empowering the actors on the ground, and we can have hope that it will work.
Well, I'm very happy to hear these rather positive messages. It shows that we're already on our way, that there is a need to accelerate, a need to boost the implementation, and also that industry is really ready to drive the heating and cooling transition forward. So I would like to extend, therefore, a big thank you to our speakers today. A big virtual applause for you for your availability. I think it was quite a good discussion, comprehensive discussion. We didn't have the time to cover everything. I mean, we could probably dive deeper into financing and cooling, but this would be for next time. So I also thank the audience for the presence. You have the opportunity, of course, to check our position paper online via the QR code or simply on our website. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to our EHP Summit on 5 and 6 November. So that's exactly in a month. Please register and let's keep continuing the discussion on the heating and cooling transition. Let's spread the word about it. Thank you very much to all of you and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.